Ms. Boyle is going to lead us this morning in prayer and pledge.
If you'll stand and bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today. We ask your wisdom and guidance as we begin this morning meeting. You know our hearts, you know our minds, you know those that are suffering, those that are sick. Please send your healing upon them. Those that are sad, bring peace into their lives. Give them strength to move forward. Please watch over our students, our schools, our teachers, and all this staff. And let us be the best stewards we can in your name and also for this county and our children. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hogan, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. We've added Williston Elementary presentation as E. We are going to delete item J, math textbook adoption. We're going to postpone that to February 8th. We're going to delay the school visit to Cedar Key to another date later in the year. And page 4. Go ahead.
Delete number 4 on D. So we got it doubled there. So 2 and 4.
Oh,
So
okay.
just delete number 4.
Okay. And page 4, Williston Middle High School FFA, they're taking a county bus, not a charter bus.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
With the changes, so moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting and these cute little faces in the front row. It's a good way to start out our day. Now's the time for public comments, if anyone would like to say anything. And if not, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes. So starting the new year, so just thought it would be a great way that we can keep the focus on our students and the highlights of what they do. So today we're happy to have Dr. Hancock and Ms. Hanley here to present from Williston L. So hopefully we'll get through by the end of the year. We'll have every school have come through here and be represented at some point in time. So just a great opportunity to showcase our students and our staff and their hard work. So Dr. Hancock, if you want to come up and introduce. So.
Well, I have the pleasure of introducing these cute faces that I get to see every day. I get to visit Ms. Hanley's classroom every day, and she is currently running our community classroom. So she has a classroom of mostly made up of Hispanic students, and they have kind of a dual language program happening in that classroom where she is instructing everything obviously in English, but make sure to include a lot of the heritage language into what they're doing. So not only is that unique and amazing in what they do, but the feel for her classroom, like I just want to go sit in it every day. It's just so much fun to be there. And they do some amazing projects on top of everything that we do, you know, educating every day. And they actually have done things school-wide to educate all of us in the schools. So I wanted to give them a chance to show off to a broader audience what they do. And so I'll introduce Ms. Hanley and let her talk about her classroom a little bit.
All right, good morning. I'm Ms. Hanley, like you said. I was at the middle high school for about 7 or 8 years, and this is my first year at the elementary school, teaching the community classroom, and I absolutely love it. So the big, like Ms. Hancock said, emphasis is on different cultures. We try to use like a bilingual curriculum. So if you come into the room, you'll see, you know, posters and things in different languages. We have cards all over the room, like vocabulary cards, just to help our new English language learners, you know, feel a part of the community. And I don't know, do I just push? We did put a little presentation together for you. Okay, so here's a photo of pretty much everyone in our class. The main emphasis that we like to incorporate in our projects is to celebrate diversity and just different cultures all around the world. I've worked in some schools where, unfortunately, you know, being different was kind of looked down upon, and you know, kids were asked not to speak in their native language. but in our classroom, it's encouraged and it's celebrated. Oh gosh,
Back it up.
I don't know if this is touch screen.
Morgan's got
Morgan's doing it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to call the kids up because they wanted to introduce some of the projects that we've been working on throughout the year. Our first project that we worked on was in September. It was Hispanic Heritage Month. So, and I'm going to let them, who was talking about that? Kellyanne? Okay, this is Kellyanne, and she's going to talk to you about our project for Hispanic Heritage Month.
Our classroom did our very first research project during Hispanic Heritage Month. We were assigned different famous Hispanic to research and talk about why and how they changed the world. Here's some of the Hispanic history.
Okay, and here's some of the pictures. So like she said, each student was assigned a famous Hispanic figure, and they all had to conduct their own research. They had to go through, the entire investigation process, make mini posters, and then we put the entire thing into a book that we actually housed in the library. So then the other students from all of the classes were encouraged to check out just to learn more about famous Hispanic figures. So that was our first big project that we did. And then the next thing we wanted to celebrate around Christmas time, we put on a cultural fair for the entire school. And we'll display some of the projects that they did. All right, Caesar, take it away.
Then I remember we learned that not everyone celebrates Christmas, so I was asking another research project. This time about different holidays around the world, we learned that Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia fast or do not eat until sundown. Also, in Germany, you have to find a pickle. Here are our on project.
Do you guys want to talk about your projects?
So in this one, we were talking about Happy New Year in China, and on China they do the dragon, but the dragon isn't just a dragon; it's a lion dragon. That's what they call it in Chinese. They do firefighters in China, and in Chinese, all the kids in Chinese, they get red envelopes, and they get money in them. In our classroom, we tried it out, and we got to get we made the cards and we passed it out for the students in our classroom, and there were money in it too. And in the picture, right there, what I'm holding up right there, it's a egg tart, and the students in my class, they tried it out, and it was really good.
So we went above and beyond the kids. We had about 10 different countries and holidays that were represented. And then they actually, each group went above and beyond, and they cooked at their house a dish that represents that culture, and they brought it in for all of us to try. So they loved, one of the countries was Saudi Arabia, and usually in the Muslim country, they a lot of times don't use silverware. So we practiced eating rice with just our hands, so they got it. Do you want to talk about the dish you made? I think it's the next slide. There we go.
We are above and beyond with this fun project.
One more, Morgan. One more.
We made food from our countries, and I got India, so I made ladus. Indians use ladus during parties like a wedding. We also ate tamales from Mexico and ate with our hands. It was delicious.
And Kellyanne brought all of you a fortune cookie to represent her Chinese project.
Love it. Thank you very much.
And then Brakeland's going to talk to you a little bit about the interactive notebooks that we use, and some of the kids are going to hold up some examples.
Thank you, sweetie. There's people inside.
Okay, thank you.
In our class, in order to help us study and help us understand a lesson, we use interactive notebooks. We have them for all subjects. In math, we use them for all lessons, and we make foldables. In science, we glue down our experiments, and we put and study guides for tests. And in
ELA.
ELA, we write down our vocabulary and
And our avid writing.
avid writing tools, and we started learning how to write letters, and we started to write letters to our pen pals in Alabama.
So we actually teamed up with another 4th grade class in Birmingham. So each of the students have pen pals, just so they can see the similarities, you know, even though these children live 8-9 hours away, just how much they have in common. We learned they all love, what is it, Roblox?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah.
And Fortnite, so. Yeah. So there's some examples of some of the stuff that we've been doing on a day-to-day basis.
I really love the interactive projects and the
Oh, yeah.
hands-on and the things that they're doing. So I know that you all make great, wonderful grades in that class. Is that right?
Yeah.
Good. I can tell. You're doing great.
Like this one, like the popcorn, this is like an experiment, and we put our experiments down.
Wow. Tell me, what was your very favorite project
Our project, like in the classroom,
in the classroom? Mhm.
I think about like these, the posters about the country, about the
You're right.
The country.
What were your favorite countries? What were each of your favorite countries to learn about?
Mine was Chinese because they do really fun stuff. In the New Year, they do really fun stuff.
Yeah.
And mine was India.
India. Wow. Why was India special?
Well, it was really fun to learn about, and I got to make movies with my sister. Me and Berkeley lived there. Yeah, from India.
Oh, that's great.
They use different colors, and what did you buy for food again? Ladus.
Did you like everything you ate? All the different recipes?
Yeah.
You did.
Especially the one that yeah, the one that you can hands.
Does anybody have any questions?
There's a
One
cookie
thing we
over
also did, and I think it's in the next slide, we learned around Halloween that no one in the class had ever carved a pumpkin.
Oh my
So a lot of these American traditions, you know, that like, you know, I'm from the States, I grew up just kind of assuming everyone has done, none of the children had ever done that before. So we did bring in pumpkins, and we all carved pumpkins for the first time. So there's some stuff.
And we also did Secret Santa.
Oh yeah, we also did that for Halloween, or for Christmas.
Miss Sally's husband came and he works in
Oh,
a
there's the pumpkin.
a thing for trees, and he told us that if we knew that everything that we use, like toilet paper, gum, candy, chairs or some or water bottle, a teacher, tissues
Are all made out of trees.
yeah.
Right.
And if you keep buying things or getting more trees are gonna be cut down.
That is great.
Miss Hanley's having a heart attack right now.
I think that's it.
You asked if anybody had any questions.
So awesome.
Yeah.
They are all in their own world, and
Yeah.
they're just excited to talk about it.
They are.
They've done their job. I mean, they speak as well as some adults.
I do. It's more of a request. I would love next year to be invited to the holidays with the different countries. So because I love to eat, and so I think that would be a great thing. So to come there. So
I was gonna say, I confess, I spend more time there because they have fun stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Some kids in their classroom would like to tell you that if you can be in Miss Hanley's class for 5th grade.
There is a formal request.
Because we've been asking Miss Hanley a lot, and she told us that she doesn't know about it, that we have to ask you.
great
I
job.
have heard
Good
you
time to
on
make
the
that
spot.
request.
That's right.
And a raise.
Yeah, mention that part. Okay, you did a wonderful job.
Good job. Good job.
Miss Hanley, can we get a picture here?
Of course.
And I know we're running short on board members, but I think board members should come get in this picture too. So.
Mr. Coward, I was wondering too, because the community class was new hearing that. What, do all the schools have it, or is it just Williston, or what?
Well,
So
obviously,
all-
it depends on school populations, so I think we're looking at possibly increasing it to other campuses where we have a need for that, so yes.
Glad to stand by you. Y'all did a fantastic job.
Emily, adjust your phone.
Great.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to it. Of course.
I love those kids. So they definitely tell you what's on their mind.
But I love it when they're not yours.
Yes, yes. They will tell you.
Marla is a
exactly
tough
what
act
to say.
to follow. Marla, that's a tough act.
Yes,
Very much.
And before she gets out, so obviously good luck to the Hancock kids as they compete today, so.
Good luck.
Hoping the females, I'm crying right
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You guys are great, thank you.
Bye. Read my fortune.
Oh, it was a good one. I hope so.
Okay, Ms. Hires and Ms. Thompson?
Ms. Hires, we want interactive, involvement, treats.
Such a tough thing to follow right there, I'm telling you. There's nothing like having kids, to warm things up and not be so formal, and they're just going to say it like it is, right?
Amen.
They're going to do that. So, well, good morning, board.
Morning.
Good morning, superintendent and guests. This morning, our department is here to just discuss, get some information out there about maybe making a transfer of our absence management system from Frontline to Red Rover. During the past 2 years with Frontline, teachers and paras have placed their absences on Frontline so that substitutes could conveniently plan ahead, fill their vacancies from the convenience of a phone or a laptop, which has worked well. After beginning this process, we realized that our schools were so overwhelmed with their own responsibilities, especially with COVID, and they lacked the time to process the paperwork and call references. So we quickly changed our process, and Heather took up the responsibility of onboarding all of our subs, which means she calls all the references, she does all the paperwork, she onboards them, and this has been a tremendous improvement. For example, I just want to let you know that just since school started, she has onboarded 98 subs. 62 for teachers and aides, 4 for bus drivers, 3 for bus aides, 4 for food service, 10 for custodial, 5 for secretary, and I want you to know that 17 of those have become full-time employees. So it's been a wonderful process. So after reviewing the Red Rover system and comparing cost, you know, it's always our desire to take great care of our taxpayer money and look out for that. So Heather is going to come and show you reasons why we're considering moving to Red Rover along with their representative, Ben Alston, and he can answer any additional questions. So today we're just kind of putting the information out there to you, and we'll be coming later to ask you for a vote on the 8th, and just getting some information out there to you. Heather?
Hello. I'm just basically going to show you a few slides with some comparison overviews between the Red Rover and the Frontline. So my basic my favorite comparisons between the two is how modern Red Rover is compared to Frontline. It's a lot user-friendly. It is easier to use. Just in my short time of just reviewing Red Rover and the way it is, I feel very comfortable using it. And I think that the secretaries of the school, the teachers, the subs will find it very easy if we do transition over to the Red Rover. That it should be a very smooth process. It's basically the same thing, just a little bit easier. They are an official Skyward partner, so they work very closely along with Skyward. We usually have the robocalls with Frontline. Now, no robocalls. It's all text messaging. They go online and they view it themselves proactively, or they get the text messaging, which a lot, people prefer that over the calls. They hang up on the calls. Nobody even utilizes that option with Frontline. Most of the time I have to turn off the calls because I get complaints of how annoying and frustrating they are at 4 a.m. in the morning. They just hang up. Or they don't know who's calling because so many people get spam phone calls anymore. So the text messaging, I think, is a huge deal on this. I don't know if Ben wants to.
You really did it all there. Yeah, we're the only official Skyward partner in the substitute management space. We all have a lot of experience as well in this space, about 20 years, and have built. So Red Rover is newer. We've also had 450 districts switch. I say 400 specifically that were Frontline in the last 24 months from Frontline over to Red Rover. So we're very familiar with the process and the implementation and making it easy.
And the implementation is super easy. I've already worked along with his partner Larry Fox, and it has been a very easy and smooth process. Of course, I was worried about a transition in the middle of the school year, but it's been so smooth.
So Heather, you were talking about the text messaging. Is that between the secretaries and the teachers, or is that between the sub and the teacher?
When the teacher puts in an absence, the text message goes to the subs.
Okay, and is that routed through some other phone number, or are we all giving out our phone numbers through text message? What are we doing with that?
So it's a substitutes. They do have their phone numbers on the system, and the system would text message them. If the secretary ever wants to push a text message through the system with a personal note, they can do that too. But it's the substitutes' phone numbers that are important, not the employees.
Another question? Will this line up with our Clever to put everything in the same spot, so we're not still class linking and Clever in to get to where we need to go?
We can definitely do that if you want to use Clever on that side. Often we're just using whatever single sign-on options that you guys prefer. So we have a lot of flexibility in that.
How we do that now is when a teacher puts in an absence, when they're in Skyward, they enter the need sub button. It would be the same process. They would go right into Skyward, right from Skyward into Red Rover.
Right, but if you're trying to access Frontline now, it's not through Clever. We still have to go to ClassLink to get to Frontline.
Yes, but we generally prefer them to go through Skyward first to initially put in the absence and then go from Skyward through Frontline rather than going straight from the absence management app.
That is an important key for finance, payroll, and the front office staff to use it in that order.
That may be something we need to push out to our employees and have to make sure that that's the steps that we're using.
Ms. Thompson, it says a lot to me that you are in favor of Red Rover because I know the work you did just around the county to get Frontline established. I did my own because it was kind of a pricey program. And I remember Ms. Wetzel, when she was at the front office of Williston, just sitting there as a parent for half an hour listening to the phone calls. She was fielding subs, and then Frontline was overwhelming to her. And then you went in and worked with her, and she loved it 2 months later. So the fact that you're in favor, after all the work you've done, of considering Red Rover.
I honestly believe the way I usually let the substitutes and the teachers know when they're onboarded, I send them a video now, and that's the same thing I would do. And they're on the go. They never have any questions. I never get any phone calls or concerns or needing to understand how it works. My biggest concern is with the secretaries.
Right.
They do have videos for the users at each location it's like a training video, and it's basically the same concept as Frontline, but it's just a lot easier, in my opinion, to navigate through the system.
So Heather, you also went.
Yes,
to the
right. Yeah, and
schools
I don't even think it's that necessary. I mean, I'll go to each school campus and sit with the secretaries if that's what they want me to do.
Right.
I'm all on board for doing that. I'll be happy to go there as I'm learning as well. So I try to look at how everybody sees the system. I watch the training videos for the employees, for the substitutes, for the administrators. So I get a perspective of what everybody sees when they're using the system.
You mentioned that NEFEC, you're a NEFEC partner, so there are districts that are already using this in NEFEC, so.
There are not, and we've spoken with NEFEC, but they don't have any other districts in NEFEC that are using it. And Florida St. Lucie is using it, and I think there's also a slide with some of their feedback, but it's been really, really positive on that end.
Gotcha.
How long has your company been in existence? Or?
Just 2 years. So we have about 20 years of experience because our architect and our lead product manager are the ones who built the ASOP system, which is what you currently are using under the name Frontline. So one of the differences is we're focused just on the human resources space and connecting with Skyward and others. This is our product. This is what we're dealing with. Frontline's a great group. I worked there for a decade, but they're focused on human capital management, the entire thing, and so they have 25 products that they all link together, and this is just what we're focused on, which also means we bring new features every single month, and we're going to listen to even the feedback of Heather if she ever has things that are like, hey, I would like this. We add things all the time, so that's one of the big differences there.
And how many districts do you have?
About 470 now. Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
I know, I think about a few months ago, I inquired about Frontline in a workshop, and we did that. That was great to have that because of myself being new to Frontline and talking to some of the other secretaries. Like you said, you're thinking about the secretaries, which is good. I mean, I do know a couple that are still bordering on, let me write it down, let me use Frontline. Mm-hmm. And I get that. So what's one of the main differences between Red Rover and Frontline that you think would take those few and that are in that position now, still writing it down, and make them go, okay, gosh, yes, I can do Red Rover now?
Yeah.
What's one of the main differences?
And are we talking about the secretaries in that list of people?
The secretaries that would handle the subs at the schools,
Yeah.
correct?
So it is a lot easier to use in just one example. There's a process that the secretaries and Heather have to go through, moving substitutes around from one location to another. In Frontline, that's going to take 3 to 4 minutes with all the different clicks. We have one button that switches them. So that would be an example of where, wow, that makes it a lot easier to do. So it just swaps the subs
Moving
and
subs.
So that would be one. But the other big thing is like our support. Heather's going to have our support in under a minute at any point she wants during the day. And if there's ever anything we need to help with supporting those secretaries, we're completely committed to that. Obviously, Heather has a better personal relationship with them, but we're going to be able to do that and make that a lot easier. And in general, the whole system is just much more intuitive in the use and where the clicks are and how it works. So we just find that the adoption is easier for most of our users, and secretaries typically love it when they switch over.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
How's it handled when, say, somebody takes that spot?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm going to sub. And within less than, or that morning arrives and that person is sick.
Yeah.
What's something in the system that would make
So-
it easier?
So the substitute's sick and can't show up that morning?
Yes, sir.
So the substitute can cancel either right on their mobile app, or they can do it from the text message if they want, or go online, however they want to go about that. As soon as it's canceled, it's going to go back out and reach out to the substitute pool. It will also, if there's any substitute that has shown interest in that job, but it was already filled, we'll reach back out to that substitute first. And we're continuing trying to build more artificial intelligence, so to speak, that will just know, okay, which sub is most likely to take this job, and let's reach out to them in that order. But that is how the process would work.
And does it automatically notify that designated person who's assigned to the system at the school?
Like the secretary?
Yes, sir.
If she wants to turn on that notification, yes.
So it's a
option.
notification, you
They
can
can
turn
turn
it
it on
on?
or off, email, push notification, what do they want on that side. And
Okay.
again, one of the benefits is, in that same scenario, right now your system's got a call substitute and go to the next one. And and this is just gonna send out a blast to, hey, 25 substitutes, who's available to work this morning? So it's gonna get the message out there much faster.
And can you pick can subs pick a school, or are they? It's like
Yes,
you
they-
can put yourself, I want to always be
Yeah, I'm
here at
never
the
gonna go to
school.
the high school, I'm scared of high school kids, or I'm scared of elementary kids. I get it on either side.
And the opposite of that is the teacher's still going to be able to request a certain sub like we do on Frontline?
Yeah.
For subs, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And also still be able to upload the lesson plans or the pictures or the documents, whatever we did on Frontline, we can still do on Red Rover?
Yeah, and what you'll see coming out in the next couple months here is they'll actually be able to leave video messages right on their app if they want to the substitute to say, hey, thanks for taking over my classroom, here's a couple things, since usually people are more accustomed now listening to information that way. So that'll be something that's unique to us as well.
And Ms. Boyle,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to address one of your questions. As we go to each school and talk with every secretary,
Yes,
that might be a good chance for us to try to drill down just a little bit and find out if somebody's not comfortable with using something or they're still wanting to write things down.
Absolutely.
We can kind of dig into that a little bit and try to find out the reason and try to help them see that this will save them a lot of time.
Absolutely.
I know what you're
Thank you.
talking about.
And that's very important. I know in Yankeetown, last week alone, they were daily 5 out, 7 out. I think we're down to 2 today, which is, fingers crossed, the way we're going to move. It's just a crazy world we live in right now. So to simplify this process is great.
Appreciate Ms. Heather and Ms. Marla being proactive, and it is a cost savings to the district too.
Yes, and actually on the next slide, we'll show you the cost savings. Annually, Frontline as of this year will be $21,749, and Red Rover will be only $12,500 annually, which is a cost difference of over $9,000 a year.
And actually, that is based on the 12.5 is based on a specific number, 500 employees, which we have less than that, so that number will actually be less than 12,000.
Mr. Austin, do you see your company raising prices in the future based on how many districts you have signed
Yeah.
up, or have you
Good question.
considered that?
So you guys are locked in for 3 years at that price rate, but we typically do our pricing according just to the pricing consumer index. So that's kind of, we try to always make sure that we're transparent in our pricing so that people can plan and you're not getting that 30 or 40% increase, which has happened to some customers. So we don't do that to our customers specifically on that side. But you guys will be locked in at that low rate for the next 3 years with no increases.
Thank you.
That's it. This is basically, the last slide is just some experience from other districts on the implementation experience for them and how fast and easy and smooth and seamless the whole process went. These are just a few of them.
Knowing this is the first time you've seen this, so we'll bring it back on the 8th, and it'll also give us an opportunity to reach out to secretaries so we have some more feedback to present, and we'll have a full board. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Next on the agenda, Ms. Lake.
She's reading her fortune.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have egg rolls, I don't have fortune cookies, and I don't have an innovative software to present, but I do have audit findings. So we'll start with the easiest to digest, which would be our charter schools. So you'll have Whispering Winds and Nature Coast in your packet. We do not perform these audits, nor do we hire the auditors who perform the audits. They are in charge of that, but that has to, all of this data has to be turned into our Auditor General's office, and they review it at the time they're reviewing our annual financial reporting. This year, both our charter schools were free from audit findings. So I have not seen an operational audit for the charter schools, which is, we'll get to ours in a little bit, but their financial audits were free from audit findings. Does anybody have any questions?
When do they have an operational, did you say?
I have
You
no
did?
idea.
Okay.
I would imagine they would tell me they look at the operations a tad bit when they're looking at the financial, but as far as DOE, what they do for us every 3 years, I'm not sure they do the same for the charters. Next, we will look at our internal audit findings. So our internal audits are all our school accounts. Pam Whitney in finance oversees the internal accounts. So this would be different from our annual financial audit, which looks at our broader fund accounts. This is specific internal accounts. So let's see what's easiest. We do have findings there. We have findings every year. We will probably always, part of our problem is we're just not big enough. We don't have enough employees to separate duties the way they would like them separated. We can't afford to do that, so we put processes in place to mitigate some of that fraud by breaking up these functions when and where and how we can. But some of these findings we will never be able to avoid because we would need probably 12 to 20 additional staff. So let's look at Bronson Elementary. And I'm going to tell you by school, not to embarrass the school because these are good. This year was a really, really good year. I just kind of want to give you the idea of struggles, the things that they faced. So they had one finding for a requisition purchase order not signed. That can happen. That's very easy. Can you imagine all the requisitions and purchase orders they do in a given year? And that was Bronson Elementary. Bronson Middle had some instances where the teacher held the funds more than one business day. That is a constant battle that we do have. Things move fast, people are busy, the money gets collected, gets set aside, then gets taken up to the front office. And we need to have that turned into the front office within one business day to remain compliant. And then they also had several instances of a requisition or PO that slid through without being signed by the principal. Cedar Key had one instance where there just wasn't sufficient documentation to ensure that the correct price was paid for a track meet. Sometimes that happens. The documentation is there when we process the invoice or pay the payment, and it gets removed from the backup documentation, and you can't find. Often you'll find it a couple years later stapled to something else on your desk that you didn't know, and that is most likely what happened there. And then also, again, we had a teacher that held funds collected for a fundraiser more than one business day. And the teachers and the secretaries work really hard. They discuss this at the beginning of every year. They sign a sponsor form. So I think it's just such as life. It gets busy, but we do remind them every year what those expectations are if they are a sponsor. Chief and Elementary had insufficient documentation for a vendor, and they needed that backup to ensure what they paid the vendor was the correct amount. Chiefland Middle High had the same. They also had the teacher finding for holding the funds more than one business day. There was one instance where a deposit could not be made within 5 days. That's rare. What happens, I would suspect what happened was probably an instance where there wasn't enough people on campus for them to go make the deposit. So what they do is they log the deposit, they count the cash, they do all their procedures they're supposed to, and they lock it in the vault, but it's set there more than 5 days before it was actually deposited. And then we had some more instances, just several, of where they didn't have the documentation didn't match maybe what the receipt was. So it was monies collected was not present. So we have all these different steps that they go through, they track, and for whatever reason, and Pam might know more about some of these than I do. But again, nothing I'm telling you surprised us. We were actually very pleased because the instances were so low when you think about what we do in a given year. The same thing, Joyce Bullock had a deposit that didn't happen in 5 days. And I say all that to get to Wilson Elementary that had no findings. So we were very, very proud of Wilson Elementary. We're not quite sure how they accomplished that, but Miss Pam got kudos in a meeting. And Wilson Middle High had the receipts that weren't deposited within 5 business days. And Yankeetown had a couple of the same. One instance, they did not get approval from our superintendent before they committed some funds. There's a certain level. If you're signing a contract, if you're doing certain things, it comes outside the school and has to go through our superintendent. And that we've been working really hard to help them identify what are those instances, but sometimes it's not real clear. So we've been doing a better job with the schools trying to identify those. And then there was one journal entry finding. Journal entries are important. We have figured out journal entries are in some cases are a warning signal to us at the district office, so Pam pays very close attention to any journal entry that's done at the schools. We learned a lot several years ago on things we can do at the back end to notice if a school is struggling or red flags, so we can address them early on. I think we can both tell you, though, this audit was a good one. There was nothing jumping out at us. Just things that we needed to continue to work with the schools, to continue to work with the principal, to continue working with the teacher, to keep these things compliant.
Ms. Kim, do they look at boosters when they do this intern?
No, ma'am. No.
They don't look at any boosters?
We would not audit an outside source. We require boosters to turn in their annual financial reports. If they don't do that, we don't have much.
They turn them in here, or they turn them
They
into
should
the
turn them into
principal?
us so that
Okay.
we can provide them to the auditors. But if they don't, the only option we have is for the principal to let that booster know that they're not going to use their services, or however you. We have to watch that because they are raising funds in the name of our schools. So the only reason we want to see those financial statements is just to ensure that what's reasonable is coming back into our schools. They are not using our tax exempt number, but they are raising them in the name of our community. So we just need to make sure those funds are flowing back into our schools.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Does anybody have any more internal audit questions? The last one is our operational audit. So we do get this every 3 years. What might look like a lot of findings, we had 6. I felt was a really good year. My first year here, we had an operational audit, and I think we had 12 or 13. They were all centered around the building of Wilson Middle High School. And again, when you start 3 years ago, we're running and doing things that we think we're doing correct, and something will change midway. We don't adjust fast enough, and it can result in a finding 3 years from now. So I fully expect that operational audits will always uncover something that could be done better. So one of our findings was requiring background screenings. It says they were not always obtained for contract workers. I'll let Kaylee speak to that real quick because I don't think it was as dire as it sounds on paper. And what did we do to change that?
It wasn't as dire, but we instituted a process, and so working with our school board attorney and having contract language, and there's a certain, when we do a contract, there's a certain language and a certain contract that has to be used, and so we also have to keep track of anybody that we have to have a master list of anybody that has a background screening so that we can double check and make sure when it's expiring that they're going back and all that. So it was just cleaning up our process.
Yes, we were asked if we perform background checks on our SROs. So we did have to explain that. But what we should do, and we are doing now, is just ensuring those people do have background checks. And it is for the safety of our children who's coming on our campuses and interacting with our kids.
You would think common sense says that if the sheriff's department hired them, so in law enforcement, that background, but we've added the contract language to check the box for the Auditor General to show, so with that.
And then we got a finding that said the district was not always providing mental health awareness and assistance training to our school personnel. I don't know if Mr. Gore is in here, but that just amounted to we had not trained everybody in the youth mental health awareness. And that, if I remember correctly, is in part to a changing of our staff, and we were trying to train the trainers, we didn't have enough trainers, we were losing the trainers. Mr. Gore has worked with Dr. Hall, I believe, and they know who they need to train. They have set up a process to get that training done. It just has not been as quickly as we'd have liked.
Combination of Mr. Weber passing, Mr. Gore taking over, then also with us a change of staff. So, and also the fact that this is an unfunded mandate that our district would have to pay the brunt of having a professional development day, so to make available, so which we want our people to be available, so but through attrition, through people leaving the district, so our numbers did dip, and we're doing everything. So I know there's been some professional development already provided since December. I believe we've had a couple campuses that have had some training going on there, so we'll continue to work on that. But those are some of the obstacles that we face to overcome this unfunded mandate.
And that's staff and students? Or, okay,
That's
because
just
I was
staff.
going to say the students, I remember that we ran into the COVID situation, having some training for the students, and that was no fault of the districts.
Yes. So we are working on that. The next one is one that pains me, but we got a finding because the website did not post the required budget information for 2021 fiscal year. So on the surface, that looks like there was no budget information on our website. So let me tell you what happened here. We have 3 iterations of a budget, right? We have a proposed, we have a tentative, and we have a fully adopted final. You would think our public would want to know what you finally rested on, what you adopted. So when I propose to the board, the proposed goes up. When I show a tentative to the board, the tentative goes up. And when I do the final goes up. Morgan and I had not communicated that, and he thought what anybody else would think, okay, and he would replace the tentative with the proposed and the final with the tentative. So when they looked, they wanted to see every iteration. So now we're going to post every iteration, and no one's going to know where to look or what one is fully adopted. But we are compliant. We were compliant as soon as the auditor said something to Morgan and I. But now we will make sure every iteration of the budget is displayed. The next one had to do with, sorry, it sounds like they're picking on SROs, but it had to do with SRO services and contracts. This was about being able to see that we had an SRO on our campus every day, and how are we documenting that? And our initial response was, well, we would know if they weren't there because immediately principals would say something, but we also know that the sheriff has made it a priority to have an SRO at every one of our schools. So if the one that is assigned isn't available, there is a sub. We, as a district, did not feel we had an issue, but we needed to be able to prove that. So we have worked together, and we are using the Raptor system. The SROs are signing in every day. Some are signing in and out, going above and beyond. And those reports from all 9 schools are sent to me monthly. And then 80 some odd pages is printed and attached as backup documentation for any invoice that we supply or that we pay to the Sheriff's Department. So that's kind of what that was about. The other was the crossing guards. They wanted our principals or someone on staff to go and lay eyes on the crossing guards every day to ensure the crossing guards were performing their duties. We explained that you cannot, from a principal's chair, oftentimes see where that is, and you're asking someone from our staff at the busiest time of the day to go and look at a crossing guard. So we hope we have satisfied them with the requirement I'm requiring from the City of Williston Police Department, City of Chiefland Police Department, and the Sheriff's Department are all providing me with time-carded documentation that the crossing guard supplies to them for payment, and we are using that as supporting documentation that those services were truly provided. We haven't heard back if that's going to be sufficient, but we are hopeful that it will be. And again, the state is just wanting to ensure we are paying for services that we are actually receiving. The fifth one is user access and how we remove users, terminated employees from our system. Again, this one is a little confusing because technically they don't have access to our system when they're terminated, but they may still show up in our system. So Morgan can probably say it better than I can.
What we're doing, and this is relating to Skyward Access in particular, both on the business and the student side, the resolution to the finding is we're moving towards Google SAML login. So basically you'll use their Google credentials. You may have seen me send out an email where we were doing some testing on that. And the reason for that is there's just automatic deactivation of Google when they leave the system after their last payout. So basically it will take care of itself once we're finished. So we're in the process of shifting to that form of authentication, and that's Skyward's response to this particular concern that's come up in other districts as well.
Yes. So they may not have had access because, as he said, they were terminated from our system, but their name would still show up tied to some of their former roles, but they could never access our system to get to those roles. But they want to see a complete removal from our system. And finally is the comprehensive IT disaster recovery plan.
And I think essentially we have always had a comprehensive disaster recovery plan. The plan that we have was one that was in the plan written to be updated on every 3-year basis. They didn't like that. They wanted it to be updated on a yearly basis, so we're going to be doing that. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, that the final resolution, that they were also willing to bring it before the board as well.
We had some confusion there. One department, local department, didn't think it should go before the board because it could have sensitive information in it. Tallahassee said, no, it needs board approval. So it was going to be a finding, wasn't going to be a finding. So I think it did finally settle with it has to come before the board the same way the safety and security does. So it won't be public per se, but it has to go before the board. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions about the operational audit?
No, I think overall, a county or a district our size, it's pretty impressive that we do what we do with, I mean, some of these are pretty nitpicky.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Or it's a moving part, so.
Right. Yes. And even though some of them were a little frustrating, I understood where it was coming from, and we will always do our best to do it better. We recognize, though, there are limitations in what we can do, but if it's reasonable, we're going to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bennett.
Well, I'm going to kind of continue the theme of some statutorily required paperwork. As you may know, every year there is a statutory requirement, or actually a constitutional requirement for class size compliance. And basically what that looks like, because our schools are all schools of choice, is in grades K through 3, we need to maintain at a school level average a class size in core classes of 18 or less students. In grades 4 through 8, that would be 22, and in grades 9 through 12, that would be 25. So every year, this is reported in both Survey 2 and Survey 3. So that's October and February. So Survey 2 is the one that really is the one that the state oversees and requires a compliance plan for whenever you have a school that's out of compliance. There's a lot of work that goes into the process of maintaining class size by the people that develop the schedules for the schools. There are several district staff members here that are involved in helping us maintain that compliance to the greatest degree that we can. And as Survey 2 happens and eventually finishes through an amendment window, we try to get it as clean as we can. This year, our situation was we did that and we were able to make some substantial inroads. There were several other schools that were initially on the list as being over. So some adjustments were made at some of those schools and the schools on your list here in terms of how teachers are staffed, where students are placed during the day. We also have some work that happens on the back end with the data entry clerks to try to make sure that we're sending clean school class size data, and that involves things like making sure that you don't have two classes that are accidentally reported in the same classroom because maybe a default classroom was set incorrectly. So we go through all of that process, and in the end of that process this year, we did still have two schools that were over on class size for one grade band each. Both of them were very close, which is typically how this plays out for us. Those two schools were Bronson Elementary for grades, the pre-K through 3 band, and that's in large part due to they have a kind of a bubble developing that has developed in 3rd grade. They have a rather large 3rd grade cohort this year. And then also in Chiefland Elementary, they were just barely over in grades 4 through 5. So what you have before you is the compliance plan that we are required by the state to submit. That plan, if it's accepted, can potentially help to reduce the class size penalty that we would receive for those two overages. The idea behind the plan is that you take where you're at the end of Survey 2 and going forward from there, what else can the school do or the district do to make sure that those schools get into compliance in the future for those bands. So you can see kind of the plans there involve adjusting where some particular kids with some particular performance levels are having some classes. In one case, it's looking at shifting it from a band that is over to a band that's not over, things like that. So we're just continuing to try to squeeze the bubble, so to speak, and try to make sure that we're having the best class size that we can for the vast majority of our students. So before we proceed to what I need to ask for, are there any questions about any of the class size process?
What's the time frame again?
For
like.
So it's
Time's up.
It's a $2 fine.
Time's
That's a
up.
$2 fine.
Time's up. So it's officially reported. Class size is officially reported both in October and February.
Right.
Okay. The one that counts for the purposes of the class size penalty, if there are overages, is October. So October this year, the amendment window ended in December. So we kind of had through the end of December to try to make sure that we had everything reported accurately and that we had made all the moves that we needed to make and could make as a district. And then we have to do this compliance plan before February 1st. So it's kind of a short turnaround after the end of Survey 2. The schools work very hard, and what you typically see is it's usually a very small amount,
Right.
and it's kind of in that situation where when you have, I've seen it happen two different ways. You can have a school that has very few class sections within a particular band, like if you were to think of a Cedar Key or Yankeetown for the 4th and 5th grade band, it could be a very small number of classes. So one or two big ones could really throw off your average. The other thing that can happen is you can have a larger school, and that's kind of the case this year, where you have a lot of sections, but it's just you're just barely over. Maybe you have 22 kids or 23 kids in every 4th grade class rather than 22, and that's just where you're at. So it's because it's such a absolute cut, kind of that's what causes situations like this. It's not a range. It's you either are or you aren't. So if that's all the questions, what we're asking for today is a motion to approve the class size compliance plan before you.
Make the motion to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
So with this, so Adam's,
He's in drills.
he's in drills, so anyway, so
okay.
with this, so this is the second reading on this, so we haven't received any public comments, so the next board meeting would be the board meeting where we would adopt, so these, so this is just continuing on, so, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now I'll need a motion for approval of minutes from our previous meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 14th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And now we're moving on to the consent agenda. I know you guys have all had a chance to speak to Mr. Cowart, but Ms. Boyle, do you have any comments?
No, Madam Chair, I've spoken to Mr. Cowart twice, and all my questions have been answered.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brookins?
Just a quick question on the job description. The only thing on the pre-K lead teacher is the name. That's correct on that? We're just changing the name of that job description?
Correct.
Okay, and then maybe explain a little more this WAN connection contract.
Morgan, would you?
2 years ago, we went out for bid on both for our internet services and for our LAN connections, and that's something that we processed through that E-rate process. When we did that 2 years ago, what we requested in the RFP is a 2-year contract with an option to extend for another year. And so that's what we're doing. This year that's coming up will be our 3rd year for both of those. AT&T had a little bit of an issue with their contract language on their side, and so they're working on an addendum to the contract for us to ensure that they are compliant with that RFP that we put in the bid for and agreed to and signed for. What we're doing here is we're going out to bid for that final year for WAN services to make sure that we have an abundance of documentation for E-rate if we were ever questioned on the E-rate side. To make sure it's clear what happened because of that change they're having to make. And kind of as a side benefit, something to think about with this is that the worst that can happen would be we stay where we're at now, but the best that could happen would be they could come back with a lower rate for us for the same service for this final year. So there's a potential for benefit there if they choose to execute it. So it's really just a procedural, making sure what we have for our E-rate documentation.
So it's not anything that we need to wait on until we know we're finalized. We just need to have this.
This is just an advertisement for RFP. So it'll go through, because of E-rate, it's a 28-day timeline rather than a 2-week full requirement. And after that 28 days, we can evaluate. And if they happen to come back with something lower, they're going to encourage them to bid on it, and we'll see if we get any others.
Okay.
If we get something better, then we can, and if not, we can always choose to move on as we are, which is probably the current plan, but we'll see.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you so much. I'm a little clearer on that. I appreciate that. And that's all the questions. Mr. Cowart's answered everything else. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my question to you, Mr. Bennett, so thank you for answering that. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Make the motion to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I should have also probably said this, but those numbers on Chief Linnell on out-of-field ESOL will be coming down. So Ms. Hanlon's done some magnificent work over there in helping move some people. So we, by survey, if coming up here at the end of next week, so we'll be in even better compliance than we are right here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Superintendent?
Just want to talk to you. Speaker Sprouse pushed through. His focus was the New World's Reading Initiative and the way that works. So Heather's not in here, but Heather's kind of been helping spearhead along with our school admin that any kid that wasn't reading on grade level, that they are going to be enrolled in a program where they get a book a month that comes to their home. So, and although our numbers are high in that area, I do want to share that Levy was number 5. The state goal was to have 20% of our eligible students enrolled, and Levy is number 5 at 27.7%. And I attribute that to a good job by Bronson L. having a literacy event and getting the word out. So and was able to sign up. I believe it was 80 kids that night. So kudos to them, because it is a free book, and we're really working hard to get our kindergarten numbers. So Lee County was number 1 in the state at 42.9%, and like I said, we were top 5 at 27.7%, so we'll continue to work on those numbers. We're asking from the state who's signed up, so we can circle back to those parents that haven't signed up to push this out to help them, because we know it's Literacy Week, and we really want to continue that focus. So with that, just a thank you to Miss Brookins and Miss Boyle. So saw that they were reading in schools yesterday, and had the opportunity to myself to get to Yankeetown. And did, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize Miss D was taking a video and posted a video. So I do enjoy reading to kids, and I do enjoy using different voices whenever. So anyways, there's me reading Skippy John Jones at Yankeetown, and then had the opportunity to be in some kindergarten classrooms at Joyce Bullock yesterday. So we'll continue that focus. Just appreciate, because we know the value of literacy, the value of reading, and it is a focus of this board. That's why we put several programs in place, and Ms. Rollins is doing a wonderful job continuing on, helping lead our reading coaches here, and then being able to push that focus back out and support our schools. So the last 2 things. Today, we have a lot of kids that are over in Gilchrist County competing FFA-wise. So Ms. Hancock's 2 kids are competing in speaking engagements. Ms. Lewis's daughter Avery, who showed up and presented here to the board. And then you've got Parley Pro teams, opening and closing ceremonies. So it's always a great day. Levy County is always very well represented. And so our kids are out and about today. And I think they're kicking off here right about now, so over there. So, and the last thing is, I told you, and it does sadden me, I'm having a wonderful opportunity that FADS has offered a leadership program that you approved, me going to February 2nd, which means I won't be there for FSBA Day, and that'll be a first. That's 9 years, so I hate that I broke my streak of not being there, because I think it shows cohesion between the superintendent and the board. Once again, I just apologize to you that I'm not there with you, but I am there with you in spirit, and I'm working on getting your meeting set up for you to help that. And I'll be there tomorrow and Thursday. They're having rural days. We've never participated in that, so I know the county commission is going to be there. So as I go up there, it may be a focus that we go more than once in coming years to see if it can be a combination between the county commission and our board to go up there and showcase the highlights of Levy County. So looking forward to that. Have several meetings set up between tomorrow and Thursday, and so feel very, very confident. We did get our bill filed for Chiefland Middle High School for the special facilities. There was a lot of back and forth between House and Senate staff on whether we needed to do that, but our bill is filed for that appropriation, so either way, I feel we're covered and we're good, and we were in the governor's budget. So with that, so a lot of people. And last thing, just want to thank Dr. Winek and NEFECT, the help that they provide and support to our districts. Had the opportunity to go up last week for Thursday and half a day Friday, and here you hear about our BOD LDP, which is the Board of Directors Leadership Development Project. So staff has been helping me. You may have heard some grumblings of a district grading process, of trying to get a framework and to have a Levy way of work. That way we don't have different things going on in different classes, different schools, of trying to be more cohesive with that. And so that is my project this year, and I was able to present our mid-year. And Miss Lewis, Miss Boyle was here for data chats, and we've still got 2. We'll have Chiefland Middle High School. Mr. McClellan was under the weather, and we had kind of a mass all hands on deck chief at Cedar Key, so let Miss Lawrence stay back there. So we'll finish those up. we have a lot of work to do, but we have a lot of people that are working really, really hard. And so we're tracking a lot of kids who have struggled. And I happened to be at Williston Middle High School yesterday, and Mr. Hawkins was in the library after school about 4:15 with probably about 10 to 15 kids working on credit retrieval there. So that's going on at a lot of places. And so, like I said, we got a lot of people that are working really, really hard to help make up some gaps and help some kids. And we'll continue to work hard. So that's all I have for you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowart. Now it's time for board comments. Ms. Boyle?
I'll just continue on talking about what Mr. Cowart did with the data chats last week when I was able to be present and hear the schools come in one by one, and the principals and assistant principals and even some staff that came in to take the place of principals. I can't put into words how valuable, in my opinion, as a school board member, it was to sit in on that data, those data chats. It was just, it was great. It's great knowledge. Love to be a part of it, you know, all the time and to listen. And they are, the teachers and staff and principals and assistant principals and the district are working their tails off to try and make up the gap that's happening with our kids. And I thought, in my opinion, we were seeing it. And, you know, in some areas, those gaps, they were improving, and that was good to see. So thank you for allowing me to come to that, because that was great. And I know we're all allowed anytime, but that was awesome. In Cedar Key, they're just getting ready for homecoming, so all the kids are excited and preparing the floats and things like that. And senior night was great. There was a little mix-up with the boys' varsity basketball game, and the team that they were supposed to play didn't show up. And what happened was some of the dads and a couple coaches decided to run out and get whatever gear they could and throw on some sneakers and went out and played the boys' varsity team. And the boys won by 3 points, but it did go into overtime due to a three-pointer from Mark DeHaven. So it was a good time. Let's see, Mrs. Weatherington, the FFA, she helped the students do some Arbor Day, planting of trees. They worked with the city, so that was great too. And you can see that on Cedar Key News, how much she helped the kids and got some trees planted, and they had a good time doing that. And I think that's it. Just looking forward to homecoming this weekend down there. Should be a lot of fun.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Welcome. Ms. Brooklyn?
Not much. I'm looking forward to our trip to Tallahassee to meet with legislators and just advocate for our schools. And yesterday, going to kindergarten class was just, thrilling. I love the kindergartners and, talking to them. So I really, really enjoy reading to the classes and need to do it more often, but it's great. And then just to follow up on Mr. Cowart, the contests that are ongoing today, just can you maybe email us a report and just, yes, what happened? Because that's nice to know, and I think they're all doing a great job.
I will do that. So, and I'll matter of fact, those that win, those district winners. So we'll bring them before the board, so and recognize them also.
Yeah, and thank you very much for always bringing the students to our board meetings, because that's nice. That's always a highlight. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Brookins. I don't have a lot either. Yankeetown Parent Conference Night's coming up on February 17th. I love Literacy Week, and I'm going to get down to Yankeetown this week also to read to the class. It's one of my favorite things to do too. And like I said earlier, there are a lot of moving parts at Yankeetown right now. They've had several, Ms. Hires probably knows, out sickness. I'm sure it's in all of our schools, but yeah, Yankeetown, it's been a pretty hard week. And I just want to say I appreciate you, Mr. Cowart, going to Rural Days. I think in the future, I think that's a great idea. I love the fact that we show unity during our regular legislative days next week that we're all attending, but to show unity with our county commissioners and have a kind of a twofold hit, I think it's a great idea. So, and that's all I have. So if there is no further business at this time, the meeting is adjourned.